Chapter 10. How Reynard, from the summit of Gastil Rock, harangued the animals at the moment of his retirement. Nobody heard Snorter's bellow, nor the ram's bleating, nor the bear's shrill whimper. But against the burning sky, on the summit of the Gastil Rock, dominating Reynard and the royal terrace from a great height, a russet-coloured imp leant over the abyss, his shape visible to everyone, and they were all astonished by this miraculously winged fox, who had been wafted in the space of one moment over the tree-tops, among the lightning and thunder, to the summit of the Gastil Rock. Almost at the same moment, the rain ceased. The sky continued to glow, but echoed only with muffled rumbling which moved farther away, while the flood tears, their large drops sparkling like gems, fell with a fine soft hiss onto the leaves and moss. Down below, the prostrate forms rose one by one and snorted, but there was not a single animal who did not raise his head as though fascinated and keep his eyes on the lowering peak where stood the russet imp. Even King Noble looked up, with fixed gaze, sniffing the air and scowling. On the other hand, not one of them, not even Isgrim the wolf, dreamed of pursuing Reynard. From Reynard, in fact, the Gastil Rock was a sheer precipice, inaccessible to earthbound feet, while on the other side it descended by gentle slopes to meet the entrance to the gorges and the way out towards the forest of mankind. And so Reynard the fox was able to defy all pursuit and laugh at his enemies. In reality, it was not Reynard who was leaning over the edge of the rock. He was still struggling painfully, with teeth, legs and claws, towards the summit. He was helped in this by the ropes of brambles which the valiant and clever rover had left behind at the most difficult places. He climbed up quickly, hardly feeling breathless, so great was his joy at seeing the plan he had thought out coming into operation without any setback. For Reynard was one of those well-born creatures with a nervous temperament and hot blood. The approach of success and the halo he saw round it turned his feet into wings. He reached the summit, where the astute fox cub, having played his role of apparition wonderfully well, now stood aside and made room for him. Reynard nibbled him tenderly. "Thank you, son. Thank you, my dear rover." Then he went towards the edge, leant over and looked at Reynard. He was never to forget the vision that met his eyes, nor the proud and melancholy pleasure which then filled his heart. He was still alone, and more so than ever, but now that he was so high above the crowd, he could recognise one by one the shapes that were moving vaguely about, looking absurdly small in the distance. He could see the top of the oak tree, where Tibbet was hiding, and the terrace from where the lion reigned. And before them all, the vast light of the storm continued to flicker in the sky and over him, over Reynard. In this way, his last trickery ended, the most daring of them all, surpassing the others just as the Gastil Rock surpassed the flat mossy stones of Reynard. "You down there! All of you!" cried Reynard. He would tell them nothing about the last subtle stratagems with which he had deceived them, how Rover had stretched a roof of brambles over a hollow between some tree roots, and how he had disappeared below them from beneath Isgrim's very feet, crouching amid his dog-like smell, beneath his warm, dripping blood. The usual paths and passageways of foxes, between the knots and humps of the roots, through the labyrinth of pebbles, along the warm meandering streams, bringing down the thunder rain, Rover had prepared the way. Thus do red foxes move along ditches and banks, through dense coverts, along gutters on the plain, as streams or eels glide down their winding ways. The father followed in his son's footsteps, but the bite in Snorter's dewlap, Bruin's hindquarters, and Bleater's thighs were made by the father, who left this imprint 3 times, barely slowing his course, as though bidding farewell to his previous life. For it was over now. This life was finished. No more jokes, trickery, or revenge. To pursue such sports meant living as a prisoner still. Once and for all, in his last metamorphosis, Reynard finally found himself. He was free in the world of his choice, free at last, and truly free, without constraint from anyone, man or beast, friend or enemy, bound by no laws except the eternal laws which unite life and death. No creature was ever more alive than Reynard at this moment of time. He was on the threshold of his new existence. He could return to his earth and find his mate and his sons again. This was better than finding again the world from which as a young fox he set forth on his 1,000 adventures. He was at last able to accept it in such a spirit that he discovered it anew in its wild and marvellous life. So now he was the first, not the only free creature of the plain and the forest, but the first to know he was free with the same precise and quiet certainty. "You down there, all of you!" He held them all with his look. He spoke to them from on high, in a clear voice, through a silence where every word carried, achieved its aim, and left an impression more vivid than his sharp teeth had left in Ysgrim's tough skin. "Listen," he said. "Breviand is finished, for Lanfert and his axe are coming tomorrow, and tomorrow the metalled road will resound with the shouts of the waggoners. You are finished, you the great ones, the masters, trusting only in your own strength, for men are coming closer, and they will not tremble at any roar or howl. You must go away, you, the lion, who are always shivering with cold. Follow the sun in its course, as far as the forests without men, where the wild horses live, the wild bulls and goats. For Snorter is going back to the stable, the cowardly beast who just now was panting at the rumblings of the storm. His strong neck is destined to the ox's yoke, his heavy body to the butcher's stall. You, Bruin the bear, will leave Breviand by the road leading away from our villages. You will walk towards the mountains, you, the winter sleeper, poor wretch, whose hide is too heavy and too big. If ever we see you again, you will have a ring through your nose, and you will be dancing at the end of a chain to make small children laugh. And you, old Ysgrim, my uncle, your strength, stamina, and courage, your big teeth, your hard paws, lofty disdain for suffering, for your own as well as that of others, what have you made of these gifts, unhappy wolf, brutal, stupid, and wretched lord? Perhaps Reynard could have saved you. Neither of us wanted that, for there's no love between us. Go away then, you too, and Godspeed. Try to find brother bandits in distant forests where you can do your strangling together. Goodbye to you too, Lady Ursa, my dear. So much the worse for you. You probably deserved a better fate and company less grim. So much the worse for you are a she-wolf and Lord Ysgrim's mate. Show your face, Tibbet, son of bastards, father of more. You will return to the houses of mankind. You will stay there, and Martin of Orleans will have no need to set traps for you. You will return for the milk, the rats and mice in the attic, without risking your tail. We shall meet again, by some hen-house, old cat, licker of whiskers, purring furry neck. But beware, in any such encounter, it is I who will break your back. The great glow in the sky gradually faded. Its nervous flickers died away, and long periods of calm brought a feeling of the transparency of night. And Reynard, becoming less clearly visible as each moment passed, said, Bamber, Besant, beasts of my forest, you with your 10 proud horns, fine antler-bearer of the glades, and you, bristly killer of dogs, rough dweller in dark coverts, who just now, in the Breviand pool, in the midst of the stormy thunder, burrowed gaily into the fiery water and entangled your snout among the water chestnuts. And you, Goutero the hare, 100 times braver than Bleater and Snorter, O Goutero of my fiercest pursuits, and you, the little furtive ones, marten from the branches, weasel from the hedges, may this night finally bring you together where the stars shine for you, where the smell of the torn leaves subsides and lets the smell of the nests come through. This way, Rover. Darkness and silence now lay heavily over Breviand. But beyond the gorges, the sky remained light and pink, and the transparent darkness echoed with a double cry, lively and rhythmic, still dancing, like the trotting of a fox along the paths in springtime, like the call of the forest itself. This way, Rover,"